Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Founders Podcast from the Edge Computing Association. I'm Phil Willis, your host and founder of the ECA. Today, we're going to meet David Bruno, founder and CEO of SafeSwiss, a global cybersecurity firm. David Bruno specializes in anti-fraud and anti-corporate espionage systems for banks and financial systems worldwide. In today's podcast, we'll find out more about David and his perspectives on cybersecurity in the exploding edge computing sector. So, David, welcome to the Founders Podcast. It's great to have you here. I think we're gonna have a kind of interesting discussion. But before we go any further, tell us a little bit about yourself. How you got here and what SafeSwiss is all about. Just that kind of 3 to 5 minute thing, basically.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And once again, my name is David Bruno, and I am the founder of SafeSwiss Data. It's a Swiss company, and I'll get to why it's a Swiss company because I'm based out of Canada. I travel quite a bit actually, and SafeSwiss Data has now become SafeSwiss, and I am the co-CEO of that company as well. We merged two Swiss companies together that had a great deal of synergies. Instead of fighting, we said, let's join forces, and that's precisely what we did. So that's what led us to today. My background for many, many years, for about 18 years, has been in the anti-fraud business. I started off in Spain after my master's degree. I worked with a Spanish company called Quality Telecom. They're still there today. And we started with SMS-based anti-fraud systems. So I was doing that for many, many years until the internet led us into the world of credit card processing, and that led to a whole slew of a different world. And you know how the tech boom of the early 2000s led to a completely different industry, and everybody went online. And then from there, we knew that we didn't really realize what we were getting into in terms of security, but we went along with it anyway. After 10 years went by, we realized we had put our entire lives online. And it was quite clear that the days of burning of a paper trail was no more. So a new industry had opened up from that point forward, and that was data protection, our own protection, to tell you the truth. And that's what led myself and some investors to starting and founding Secure Swiss Data. Now, why Secure Swiss Data? Well, we had to make sure that we had make it known right from the start the name of the company was going to reflect what the data was doing. So we had to choose our jurisdiction. There are 3 jurisdictions in the world that were boasting on data security. We had Iceland, we have Switzerland, and we have Dubai. Now, if you look at them separately, you'd say Iceland. Well, what history does Iceland have with data security? Not very much. They're about the same level as Sweden. Okay, well, what about the other one? Well, we have Dubai. Mm-hmm. Does Dubai have any reputation of security? I think you can answer that question. The last one was Switzerland. And many people ask me, well, why did you choose Switzerland after the whole banking crisis? Because what happened in Switzerland was they had arrogantly outstretched themselves in the banking industry, and they set up branches across the world. When finally the Panama Papers came out, or even before that, a lot of the jurisdictions around the world, like the countries and the leadership in those countries, were saying, okay, look, we know that our citizens are doing business with Switzerland, they're money laundering, they're doing X, Y, Z. You need to give us information for them. And Switzerland said, no, we can't do that. So the governments around the world said, I see. So what about this branch you have in Toronto? What about this branch you have in New York? You either give me what you want or we close down your bank. So at the threat of losing their shirts, literally, Switzerland capitulated. Moved now, fast forward to data, and Switzerland said, we will never repeat the wrongs of the past. The data protection is going to stay within our borders and it will never leave. And that's what led to the strongest data protection in the world. And that's why we went with Switzerland.
Okay. So, so what is the organization? What do you provide to organizations?
We're providing beyond security, we're providing privacy. Now, part of our motto is, a lot of people say, well, if you've got nothing to hide, then put your cards on the table. Well, that's not right. I mean, we don't walk down the street naked. We wear clothing. Well, we don't send postcards anymore. If something's personal, we enclose it in an envelope. So, our motto is you may not have anything to hide, but we all have something to lose. Putting your data out there for everybody to see is something that nefarious players can accumulate and then use against you. So that's what we're really against. We believe that privacy is a human right, and that's what we're trying to provide.
Okay, just moving away from that
Sure.
to the you are a founder. That's why you're on the Founders Podcast. You obviously started it with a large organization and had some corporate background. So here you are running your own organization. Are founders wired differently? Why the heck did you give up a good corporate job to do this?
Well, a few investors and a business partner of mine saw a need back in 2013. We were following a company, Pure Security, and it was an end-to-end encryption company, and it's still out there, called Silent Circle. We love them, we use them, and we were following the story rather closely. And one of the stories was that they had came out with their encrypted email server. The problem that they had was that their servers were based in San Francisco. And the United States government went back to them and said, well, you're going to have to give us a backdoor. And the founders of Silent Circle had to make a choice. They either had to move or shut it down. So the move was going to be very traumatic for them. So they went back to their customers, to their I think it was about 100,000 email customers, and said, we're really sorry. We're not going to capitulate. This is the whole point of our business. We're not going to give the CIA a backdoor. So I'm afraid we're going to give you a week, but we're shutting it down. So we followed this story. We had an account, and we thought, there's really something going on here. There's really a need. And at the same time, Proton Mail, developed by 3 or 4 brilliant American physicists in Switzerland, had created Proton, and we saw there is really something going on. So my business partner and I and other investors said, you know what, this is something that we should do, not only on a moral point of view, but there's a need in the market. So let's do it. And that's how we started.
So, this is the Edge Computing Association. And I think security, obviously, is a very interesting thing, especially with, especially in the last 24 months.
Yeah.
How, in terms of security, cybersecurity in edge computing, what are the trends? What are the influences that we're going to see in the next, 2 years? Because the business is impacting, computing infrastructure massively, which means data security has to be getting influenced as well.
Absolutely. We have seen right from the beginning, the internet changed the world. There was we know a complete human paradigm shift with the advent of the internet. Everything changed. From there, security took on a whole new different level. And we realized that certain civil liberties would happen because everything had been online, and you can't have it disappear. So new laws had to be created, and that was the evolution of where we are today. And then, as we are living through the COVID-19, we are now experiencing a new shift. This shift is everybody stay home. Now, the advancement of the internet has allowed us to work quite well remotely from home. The problem is we haven't allowed our security to catch up with the need for these types of changes. So as we are working from home, the new shift is how do we protect ourselves? The world is under attack every day. I don't know how often my business partner and I talk about, oh my goodness, another breach, another several hundred million people. This time, which is even more relevant than the last few years, governments have caught up with certain laws and said, why is that happening? Not only why is it happening, if you can't explain it, here is your fine. Now that hurts. We've had Google that was fined. We've had the Marriott Group was fined around $400 million. We have Yahoo as well. This is also helping change the world in terms of security. They're catching on. What is happening now, as we can see, is a lot of the companies have caught on, and they have their ITs that are preparing their citizens to, or their citizens, their workers to work from home. A lot of the companies I've been speaking to have said, well, we're okay. We've got our people that are working from home and they're using a VPN. Well, that's all well and good, but you know, that still doesn't mean that their home systems before they get to the VPN is protected. So we've got routers that are being attacked. We've got all kinds of other different areas that these nefarious workers are working around, and it's not good. So this is where one of the things that we're trying to promote, and we've partnered up with the company QNext in terms of their FileFlex system, is a zero trust architecture. So this is a complete workaround with VPNs. In the next couple of years, 60% of all companies are going to go in this direction. Now, that's on the one hand, but there's something that we can do right now, immediately, to help citizens, apart from the zero trust architecture, and that's end-to-end encryption. We found that the world still hasn't caught on completely on what the advantages of end-to-end encryption are. However, what we have noticed is through a lot of the policies of certain countries that see what are the power behind end-to-end encryption, there is a pushback against it. Now, when I see a pushback against it, especially when it comes from governments, to me, that means it's actually working. So that is something that people should be catching on immediately, and they can help them right now.
Okay. So, you know, you're in the edge, you know, you're in the data market. You know, I'm interested in the edge side of things. So in terms of the edge computing side of it, you know, are you educating the market, or are you arriving just at the right time?
We're definitely not arriving at the right time. We've been back when we were SafeSwiss Data, before we went into merge with the new company and created SafeSwiss.
Yeah.
We were constantly trying to educate the environment. We had articles, we had symposiums, all kinds of web talks. We were going around in conferences all around the world. We were going to Switzerland, Germany, all over Canada, the United States especially, and we were really on a campaign, and we had spent quite a bit of money on educating the public and businesses. Now, here's a really funny story I have for you. We commissioned quite a few white papers, and the first one was, let's talk about the ITs of companies. Let's see what's going on there. What we realized was, almost in every case, the IT department had what do you call it? It would be an internal culture, an inability to say, no, I don't understand that. So their answer was always, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, for sure, for sure, for sure. And I'll give you an example. If a CEO has read in the paper that so-and-so was breached, the first thing they're going to do is call their IT department and say, hey, did you hear about that breach? And the answer would be, oh yeah, isn't that terrible? It's really mind-blowing. Then the CEO would say, are we protected? The immediate answer, without even thinking about it, was, oh yeah, for sure we are. Yeah, don't worry about it. When they'd hang up the phone, you know, the first thing they'd say is, I don't know. I better find something that I can, because in about a minute he's going to ask me for a report, and if I don't have anything, you know, I'll rightfully be fired. So there was, going right back for the mid I'd say about 5 years ago or so, there was an ad hoc patchwork that has led to a whole host of insecurities up till today. So there is a huge learning curve, especially trying to convince the IT departments it's okay to say you don't know. We're here to help.
So what's your sort of vision of the future of data security in the edge / AI / machine learning age, which is, you know, distributed computing, edge-to-edge processing, all of that stuff that's being thrown around. But it's a completely different infrastructure than what the computing side of it has had for the last 15 years. I mean, that's a big change.
We're definitely experiencing a trend here. We're experiencing the great catching on, and governments are doing it too. And I'll give you an example to that. Just a year or so ago, the government put out, quite 2 years ago actually, that they needed help with the data security. They realized that there's too many breaches going on, and this led to one of my contributions that led to Canada, through Minister Baines, the 10-point digital charter. It's a good start. And it also led to the European Union's new privacy laws, which are also a good start. But the problem is that there's always nefarious groups, and now state-sponsored espionage, and that one's killing me, because there's quite a bit of money that they're putting behind it. And I know that even though we're catching up, they're always going to try to be a step further ahead, and we have to do the same. So the trend is always going to go towards security. Now, we've seen this already before. We can already imagine where data security is going to end up through how credit card compliance went from 0 to PCI compliance level 1, 2, and 3. So we know that data security is going to follow exactly the same route. When I was dealing with companies that were purchasing or selling online, PCI compliance and their sales went hand in hand. And they had to follow certain standards that, albeit was set by Visa and MasterCard, but this time it's going to be set by the governments for a real need to protect their citizens' private data. So as we saw PCI compliance go through the roof for credit card protection, so will personal data. I can see it going in that direction.
So let's move away from the sort of security side of it,
Sure,
to more on the founder side of it. You know, this is sort of passing on some experiences. What's the greatest challenge you faced in your business today?
staying ahead. It's been quite a challenge with on the programming side. As you have seen, how you always have to stay a step ahead, and that means money. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cheap. We've had a few complaints from our own investors saying, it kind of felt like the Pope with Michelangelo, looking at the Sistine Chapel saying, "Are you finished yet? Are you finished yet? When will you finish?" I felt the same way with our investors. David, is it done yet? Where are we now? Is it secure? Is it more secure? When will this end? And the answer is it won't end. It can't end. You always have to keep going.
Okay. When you meet those challenges, okay, how do you typically handle them? Have you kind of come across a methodology, a process that says this, or do you just handle it, as it comes?
We've been handling it as it comes, and we've also been trying to prove it. So we've had testers, we've had people on the inside hack, for example. But again, it's always trying to stay one step ahead. It's not easy, and it's not going to get any easier either. There is now a new trend as we work towards, and you can already see this with China and North Korea, more so with China. They're trying to already get into the quantum computing. We know that there's certain companies in California, or sorry, not companies, it's still at a university level. And we know that is our next challenge. We thought we weren't going to see it in our lifetime, but here we are. So I think within the next 10 to 15 years, that's where we're going to go. It's going to go into the quantum.
In terms of life lessons, this is also something we asked. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self in terms of business?
Oh my goodness.
Just the business. Keep it down to business, okay?
My 20-year-old self. Wow. Yeah. Right. Compliance is expensive.
Yeah.
Let me write down the amount. Let me fold it here. This is how much compliance is going to start with. And guess how much you're going to end up spending by the time you are 40. let me write down the answer. Okay, give me your guess, and then open the piece of paper. I think I would have really fallen off my chair.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? We've all been mentored by what's the best piece of advice?
You know what the funny thing is? That actually came out of a piece of history, and it has transcended all the way into business, especially when it came to the testers, the engineers, and that was it's always at the back of my mind as a life lesson. So when Catherine the Great, before she had become empress, she had been poisoned, and one of her allies had taken her away, noticing that something was definitely up, and she had taken her, whisked her away to her mother-in-law's convent, where she had closed all the doors, she locked everybody out, and she took care of her until she would get the poison out of her body and take care of her. And Catherine said, "Who would do this to me?" And Elizabeth grabbed her and says, "Assume no one and suspect everyone." So as a life rule, you can't take anything for face value. Always give it an extra testing. Don't always trust. And that's why we're also into zero trust architecture. So that was one of my life rules.
Okay. All right. So let's move into what I term rapid fire questions. Don't think too much. I know that's hard, but don't think too much about it. If you weren't doing what you're doing for work now, what would you be doing instead?
Wow, I'd still be in compliance for sure. I'd probably be in telecom. Actually, that's a really good question. I don't really see myself doing anything. This has been a life progression right from the beginning of my career.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What book are you currently reading or listening to or whatever? And is there any particular book in the last 5 years that's influenced you?
It's funny you should say that. I do. I have it in front of me. Banned Methods of Persuasion is the book I'm reading at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Are you a morning or a night person?
I am 100% a night owl. That's something that runs in the family. My whole family comes from a long line of bakers.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Mom. She put it into the blood, and I got to deal with it.
If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
Truly passionate to what I do here. Privacy is a human right.
Okay. What's keeping you up at night?
Quantum.
Quantum? Okay.
Chinese quantum. It's already in the satellites, and it really keeps me up at night.
You're a fairly well-traveled person. What's your favorite place in the world?
Barcelona is a place that I have lived, along with Luxembourg, and I find them like living museum gems. Mm-hmm. I love living in different places. Mm-hmm. I come from Thunder Bay, Ontario. It's another beautiful place. It doesn't bother me to pick up and be somewhere.
Okay. David, it's been a super session. I really have enjoyed it.
My pleasure.
And I think there's some real insights on. It sounds like we've got privacy, compliance. We've got a ways to go in the edge world. And on that basis, I know some people want to get a hold of you after listening to this. How can listeners, find you online, basically?
I do have contact information from my LinkedIn. I couldn't be easier to contact. I've got a phone number and an email. It's the best place to look. So it'd be David Bruno on SafeSwiss.com and LinkedIn. Okay.
That's great, David. Once again, thank you very much for giving us some insights on the security side, and been great meeting you. Okay.
Stay well, stay safe, and stay home.
Yeah, thank you.